Hey kiddos, I'm TheOtakuChic and welcome back to Homemade Anime Reviews. Mamoru Oshii is a pretty cool guy. He's one of the pioneers for anime's popularity in the West along with Katsuhiro Otomo. He's created many successful movies and shows in his time, including the Ghost in the Shell franchise, Angel's Egg, and the Pat Labor series, to name a few. Yeah, so Oshii's been praised time after time for his work, and although some were huge failures, he's almost always forgiven. He's kind of like Jin-Roh, apart from he's actually good. But there's one specific movie that he wrote in the late 90s that caught my eye, a seinen nonetheless. A movie I ended up watching by complete accident and coincidence. Sometimes film can surprise you. Sometimes film can entrance you. And so, that movie is the one I'm here today to review. Jin-Roh, The Wolf Brigade.
Why didn't you shoot?
I don't know.
Jin-Roh is an animated film that was released between 1999 and 2000 and was directed by Hiroyuki Akira, whose only other directed film thus far was After Jin-Roh, being A Letter to Momo. It was animated by Production IG, who have animated Ghost in the Shell, Guilty Crown, Psycho-Pass, and even had a hand in the end of Evangelion. Set in a parallel universe of the 1950s where Germany took over Japan instead of the United States, it centers around Kazuki Fusei, who is a member of the military special unit known as the Caballeros. This is a section that works outside of the normal police field in order to keep peace in an almost apocalyptic country. Upon chasing a terrorist girl and failing to shoot her as she blows herself up in front of him, as well as hurting the relation between the Caballeros and the police authorities, he meets the sister of the girl, named Kay. And that's as much as I can say without spoilers. I don't count spoiling the opening scene as a spoiler, and to review the film, that had to be revealed. The rest of the movie focuses around Fusei retraining to become an officer, while fighting his own humanity, as he has to make a choice to stay in the comfort of the Caballeros or become a free man. The film is about the political ties and relations between the different acting parties, like often seen in war flicks. But don't be fooled. This is a psychological drama movie, thick and thin. And when compared to other titles with Oshii's name tied in them, this is definitely one of the most unknown, despite having a live-action movie saga and manga behind it. A war film with psychological batter to boot would be a successful movie nowadays. So, why is Jin-Roh so unheard of, especially with Oshii on the team? Well, on to the reviewy thing.
Mother, what big teeth you have.
The story of Jin-Roh is very interesting to dissect as it's an interpretive piece, and something you'll pick up on very fast is its obsession with Little Red Riding Hood. This is a very important theme that changes people's perspective on the movie. Because of how it's presented, people either see it as masterful or pretentious. I lean more to the side of it being masterful. Yes, Jin-Roh constantly hits you over the head with the theme, from Kay wearing a red cloak to her actually giving Fusei the German version of Little Red. It even reads it out loud to its viewers. But this doesn't really bother me because of how cinematically well its metaphors are presented. From Fusei being a wolf in human clothing to the freedom behind the gates, it's done in a way that isn't too dramatic or overdone. There's a certain dream sequence in the film that helps explain what I mean, but I can't do so because of those spoilers. Basically, the film sets out all these themes and metaphors relating to humanity and Little Red that may seem easy to understand, but once you dive into them, you realize they're more complicated than they're first made out to be. This is what really stood out to me about Jin-Roh, and I could analyze the thing for hours. The film is also very melancholic. Many other films try to portray sadness in them, but often come off as melodramatic or forceful. So it's very impressive how well Jin-Roh pulls this off. The film uses a lot of silence and offers a very bleak world that helps the viewer feel the depression it bathes in. Even when it talks about freedom and running away from the dark society they live in, its dialogue still manages to sound so somber. And like most fairy tales, Jin-Roh has a sad ending. One you know is inevitable, like when a relative or pet gets deathly sick. And then it just ends, forcing the viewer to take in the depressive reality of what just happened. And it's beautiful. But Jin-Roh is not a perfectly written film. There's a lot of things that can be a little too interpretive and aren't explained well. Also, there's a plot twist near the end of the film that shows up completely uninvited. It's necessary for the ending to work, but a little more build-up or foreshadowing could have made this truly marvelous. Something else worth mentioning are the parallels it has to the real-world 1960s Japan. During the time, there were massive student protests and hysteric political fear towards Japan becoming a fascist society. So much so that the head of Japan's Liberal Party was assassinated on live television. Many feared for the lack of Japan's political opposition and of the special forces that worked the streets, which parallels how Fusei couldn't lead the pack, being the Kerberos, because there was nowhere else to go. See the ties? It's very interesting to analyze what this exactly means to the story, but overall, the fact that Jin-Roh manages to educate you without you even realizing it is pretty extraordinary. To sum it up, the story of Jin-Roh, though a little preachy and unbalanced, is a gorgeously written piece with interpretive themes and a sadness that'll have you thinking for days. I give the story a 9.2 out of 10. The best way I can describe the characters of Jin-Roh is refreshingly depressing. Yes, just like the melancholic story, there are melancholic characters. Everyone is very realistic and it feels like you're watching actual distressed people dealing with situations the best way they know how. From Fusei doing whatever it takes to stay with the Kerberos to Kei trying desperately to find peace. Of course, there's no stupid stereotypes or lollies or tsunderes in this film too. Oh, she's not retarded. Everyone is a mature adult. That's right, there's no high school setting or teenage dance in this one. Holy shit. Because of this though, many might be turned off by the characters. Because they're so dark and boring like most humans, they're not the most entertaining thing to watch. But looking at them critically, they're pretty damn fascinating. Well, at least Fusei. This guy is awesome. You see him struggle trying to find what he really wants, dealing with his inner wolf and his fear of leaving that pack. He doesn't quite know what to do. Again, like humans. And it can even be argued that the Fusei without a mask is different from the Fusei with a mask. That with a mask, he's a wolf, and without it, he's more human. God damn, that's good writing! The side characters are interesting too, and they all have different sides in the war and offer different perspectives. Though at times the antagonists seem a little too illogically evil. But you know what? So does Fusei. Again, it's up to interpretation if Fusei is the good guy or bad guy here, if his choices were right or wrong, or if he's just making choices without a positive or negative position. It's pretty interesting how this guy actually does the opposite of develop. He becomes less of a human in a good way. I've never really seen a movie that pulls this off quite like Jin-Roh. Other characters have development though, which is pretty decent, though most seem to resolve it in mental breakdowns. I still can't complain here. If I had to point out a negative, it'd be some characters needed a little more focus on them. The people behind the Kerberos, the rebels in the streets, and even Kei herself. Their motives seemed a little blurred, but this may have been intentional. Have these side characters so diluted that they could be anyone and represent the world rather than themselves. Kind of like Shin Sakayori. With all that in mind though, the characters, especially Fusei, are very real and support the story of Jin-Roh damn well. So the characters get an 8.9 out of 10.
Guess that's how it goes. It doesn't take long for us to forget. Or maybe we just never noticed in the first place.
The animation is the icing on the somber cake that is Jin-Roh. Starting off with the character designs, and like the characters themselves, they're realistic. There's no oversized eyes, random hair colors, or wacky outfits. No, instead, there's just real, dark-haired Japanese people. Again, this might be a turn-off to many, but it's necessary for them to complement the sad mood it's going for. Everyone is still pretty distinct and you remember their faces, though that might just be my bias for Fusei looking like Guts, my husbandu, but you get the point. They have a strong resemblance to Satoshi Kon's work, and at first, I thought he had a hand in it. But nope, just Oshii. Anyway, they're nice. Except for this guy. Jesus Christ, this guy. Looking at the backgrounds, and wow, they're detailed. They blend very well with the characters and manage to look dark and grungy without looking too gritty. They're designed to look like a real place, like Japan, and it works well. It's also reminiscent to Ghost in the Shell. Though sometimes they look a little too watercolory and barren, they're mostly gorgeous, especially in the first scene. Everything tends to lack gradients and shadows though, and have simple color palettes, but I think that's the point, to capture the darkness of reality. And that doesn't matter because holy crap, look at this suit! Really, holy shit, that's a damn good design! No wonder Killzone stole it. In fact, Jin-Roh does a great job at portraying military equipment and movement, better than most anime films I've seen tackle the subject. They really did their research with this one. It also impresses in actual animation. For the most part, it's very smooth and the CGI is kept to a minimum. It knows how to portray emotion and makes the small things count. The rooftop scene and the dream sequence being the biggest example of this. Oh, and Anime Snow. Double points for Anime Snow. I think I might make a website just dedicated to this stuff. But back on track. Jin-Roh is a beautifully animated film that's smart in using deep, dark colors and reserving its bright colors for its chaos and light colors for its happiness. And I can't really think of much wrong with it. Really, on a completely different level, I think this is as well animated as something like Ghost in the Shell, and looks better than a lot of stuff coming out these days. And for a late 90s flop, that's impressive. Production IG really put their best foot forward with this one. I just wish they'd do that nowadays. So overall, the beautifully somber animation does the film justice. Mostly. And the animation gets a 9.2 out of 10.
When I see the same sadness in you, I start to dream. I wonder why.
The soundtrack for Jin-Roh was composed by Hajime Mizoguchi, who's composed for Technolize and Escaflowne, alongside his ex-wife Yoko Kanno, and I really like this one, guys. With the use of heavy violin and piano, among other instruments, the soundtrack works well in, yet again, portraying that helpless and somber feeling. And I know it may sound strange, but I hear humanity in this. I hear life and death in a musical form, especially through pieces like Pride and Silence and Wind. A lot of the tracks send shivers down my spine and have joined in my late night listening playlist. It's kind of similar to the Heavy Rain OST in showing that sense of sadness and failure. Of course, there's a couple of tracks that agitate me, like Sting, which scares the living shit out of me every time I play the DVD. But it isn't composed badly, it's just when I'm listening to a calm, soul-wrecking piece and the next thing I know I'm greeted with this, it puts me off. Although when music's used in Jin-Roh, it's used decently well. There are a few scenes I feel the music was out of place, but these are few far in between and you likely won't notice them. Like all good movies, Jin-Roh also knows when to shut up. In most of the emotional scenes, no music is played, and it forces the viewer to focus on the feelings it's trying to portray visually. It's very smart and makes the ending all the more heartbreaking when they bring out their magnum opus, Grace Omega. A mix of a bunch of different songs from the soundtrack matched with the vocals that speak no language. This piece is spectacular. It felt a little jarring when I first heard it, changing halfway from the soothing, depressing melody to a violin belt out, but in listening to it many times, I can confidently say it's one of my favorites. It's a classic in anime soundtrack history, and it will leave you entranced. Moving on to the voice acting now. Under my preference, I like the dub more than the sub. There's nothing really wrong with the sub here, although it's more dramatic than the dub and Fusei's voice range changes at times, but it's not a bad sub. I just found the voices in the dub were more distinct and unique from each other than in the sub. The sound effects, weirdly enough, are also a lot better in the dub. For example, when characters scream in sewers in the sub, the echo's quiet. It's really weird, but it comes down to personal preference on which to pick, and you won't go wrong with either. There were no real standouts here, but Michael Dobson did do a good job with Fusei. I think he honestly could have potential to be a very talented voice actor, managing to portray the dark, trapped, and emotionless side of Fusei. He's also voiced as Mojo Jojo from Powerpuff Girls Z and The coffee guy from Humanoid? That's right, I watch anime abandoned. This guy has a terrible track record behind him, so it's no surprise he isn't in many other anime. Which sucks because these guys aren't bad voice actors, and compared to some of the trash we've got now, it's a shame. Overall though, the music was extremely well made with a dub that does do the show justice, so the sound gets an 8.9 out of 10.
You know I wanted to go with you. You know I did, but you weren't someone who could.
Putting everything aside, I'll come out and say it. Jin-Roh, the Wolf Brigade is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, anime film of all time. I realize it has flaws. Like everything, nothing's perfect, and neither is Jin-Roh, but the combination of all its aspects just fascinates me. It's a character study and an atmospheric piece, as well as the most somberly beautiful film I've seen to date. And the idea of humans being nothing more than humans and how it shows this has me in complete awe. I haven't even gotten to talk about the world Jin-Roh truly presents and a bunch of other things because it'd take me forever to do that. But yeah, when all is said and done, I adore this film, and I feel with every watch you learn a little bit more about it. I think that's what makes it timeless. It presents an experience unique to itself, and this is one of the key factors I look for in anime. And if a film can get me emotionally attached so much that I cried at the ending, then I think it's doing something right. That's right, this film made me cry. Grave of the Fireflies, a sigh. Clannad, nothing. Angel Beats, a laugh. And this film about Little Red Riding Hood and military wolves made me cry. I don't get it either, guys. So why was Jin-Roh, a very well-written, well-animated film, so unsuccessful compared to Ghost in the Shell? That's an easy one, because it was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. During the late 90s and early 2000s, sci-fi was booming with popularity. Everyone and their grandma was interested in space, time travel, and the unknown. This is evident when even looking at Toy Story from 1995, or Akira back in 1988. No one was interested in a real-life, gritty, post-apocalyptic film, let alone an animated one. And with only a single big action scene, count me out, said potential viewers. Yes, if Jin-Roh came out now, I believe it'd be a very different story, and the film would gain a lot more credit. And it's a dying shame the lack of fans Jin-Roh has. So what do I think of Jin-Roh compared to Ghost in the Shell? I like Jin-Roh more, hands down, for reasons that'll take too long to explain. It hurts even more to know Ghost in the Shell was more popular when you look at Jin-Roh's background. How much effort Oshii put into the manga, the radio dramas, and the live actions, which I've heard good things from. And then you look at Ghost in the Shell, a film based off a manga by a different person. I feel like the passion project here was Jin-Roh, and again, it deserves a lot more popularity than it's been given. It did just get re-released and saved by Discotek in the US, which shows some signs of hope, but to be honest, this film's time is long gone, although it didn't really have much of a chance to begin with. So if you're thinking about ignoring this one because of it being a military war film, don't be so quick to second guess, because this might just be one of the most beautiful films you'll ever see. Overall, Jin-Roh, the Wolf Brigade is a masterful film that, while not flawless, offers a melancholic experience like no other. It's not for everyone, it can be slow and yes, at times pretentious, but if it is for you, I think you'll really come to love it. Looking back, I gave the story a 9.2, the characters an 8.9, the animation a 9.2, the sound an 8.9, and for enjoyment, I give it a very high 9.5 as I keep coming back to it and find something new every time. Then I mix these results together and got an average score. For Jin-Roh, the Wolf Brigade, I give an extremely high 9.14 out of 10. I recommend this film to you if you enjoy interpretive pieces and are looking for a movie that makes you think. I also recommend it if you're searching for a good military anime, as there aren't many that stand as high as Jin-Roh. Lastly, if you want a depressive movie, this one's for you. I don't recommend this show if you're looking for a typical war flick though, because gunfights and manly madness is not something you'll find in Jin-Roh. Because it's interpretive, it does require some thinking and analysis to get the full experience. So if you're not prepared for that, don't bother with this one. And if you don't care for realism and instead enjoy stories more keen towards tsundere, baka, ass, titties, infinite Stratos, SOL, then give Jin-Roh a miss. Under Kisa's recommendation though, I say if you're looking for a deep and meaningful film to analyze, then Jin-Roh is something you should definitely check out without hesitation. Along with this, I plead you not to judge this for being a military film. I know it may be easy to shrug this off as dumb gun bullshit, but trust me, it's anything but. For alternative shows to Jin-Roh, I have 2 to offer you today. If you enjoyed the psychological idea of monsters disguised as humans, then check out Monster. It's an excellently crafted anime that's very well known for being near perfect. I don't know anyone that doesn't like it. If you enjoyed the depressive and dystopian world and characters more, then Technolize may be for you. It's more complex than Jin-Roh, but I've heard good things from it, and it's a beautifully dark, underrated show for anyone that's looking for it. Also has the same composer, and it's very interesting to see his progression over time. Jin-Roh the Wolf Brigade is available to buy through Discotek in the US. You can also find old Bandai visual copies around online, if you're looking for an even cheaper buy. It's also available through Madman in Australia and New Zealand. There is no release outside these countries as of date, but importing is still an option. I recommend importing Discotek's copy over Madman's. You saw the menu screen. Well, that wraps up this review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and feel free to leave a comment in the description telling me what you thought about Jin-Roh the Wolf Brigade. Remember, it's not pretentious if it's quoting old literature. I've become pretty active in the social of the medias, so why not check me out on Hummingbird and Twitter, where I lie about my release dates. It's fun stuff. But until next time, El Sai Kangaroo. On to the reviewy thing. Yeah, I love saying that.